Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, talking Nebraska Cornhuskers. The Scott Frost era is underway. The Huskers went down to Colorado in the last minute of the game, 33-28, going down by a couple touchdowns, coming back for an 8-point lead at 28-20, and then losing late and losing their starting quarterback as well. Got Parker Gabriel on the line from Husker Extra. Would like to, first of all, apologize for anyone who expected us to be on tonight at 6:30 Eastern time. I was running late at work. So the goal, Parker, is that this blows up so big I don't have to do anything else. And so then I never miss an appointment. So we had to push things back a little late. And fortunately, Parker was able to accommodate. So I appreciate that, because you have been running around like a crazy man, not just because it's plain football season, but so much added on to that. And let's start at the quarterback position with Adrian Martinez and his status, and the controversy around the hit as well.
Yeah, there has not been a dull moment here in quite a while. Adrian Martinez was hurt with 3 minutes and 29 seconds left in that loss to Colorado on Saturday. It was just a option play. They were driving late in the game. They had escaped. Actually, Colorado missed 2 field goals in the fourth quarter. Nebraska missed one of its own. And it looked like Nebraska was sort of moving toward, not salting it away, but they had a chance to. And he went down with a knee injury. We'll get to the controversial part of it in a minute. He's okay, which is the good news for Nebraska. He avoided serious injury. Scott Frost does not talk very much about injuries and didn't give a lot of details, but said no real ligament damage. And he's day-to-day, so he hasn't practiced so far this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Nebraska has most of its contact work out of the way by the end of Wednesday morning in a normal game prep week. So it's going to go right up to kickoff against Troy on Saturday, probably, as to whether or not Adrian Martinez is available. But if he doesn't play, it seems as though he's got a good chance to play a week from Saturday at Michigan, which is the beginning of Big Ten play. So good news all in all for Adrian Martinez in Nebraska that he was not more seriously injured. It's a right knee injury.
Talking Nebraska football with Parker Gabriel. You can join him on Husker Extra. And, of course, the week 1 loss against Colorado, one of the more entertaining games of the week. Nebraska goes down the first 2 drives of the game. They look really good, except for turning the ball over, go down 14-0, come back for a 28-20 lead, and look to be somewhat in control. And then the quarterback injury, and the Colorado wide receiver, Lavisky Chenault, I believe is his name, made some outstanding catches, not just the game-winning touchdown catch, but the previous drive when they scored to make it 28-26 or 28-27, whatever the score was at that point. He made a diving catch down the sideline on like a 3rd down that proved pretty crucial as well. The thing that I noticed about Bunch coming into the game that I thought was that they packed it in early. They wouldn't throw it on 1st and 2nd down. They put him in a bad situation on 3rd and 16, and he just throws a bullet to the right sideline. It was a beautiful throw. It was like an NFL throw right on the money. Was dropped. I don't know if that was Morgan or Spielman.
Spielman, yeah, J.D. Spielman.
Then he seemed to play pretty well to close out and almost win the game, but the last couple of throws didn't give anybody a chance to come down with a catch to win the game.
Yeah, that was the thing I think that Andrew Bunch would tell you that he wants back about all of that is the 2nd down throw to Stanley Morgan from the 21-yard line. It looked like Morgan had a step on a corner route. Now, I mean, you're talking about a 35-yard throw in the air to the back corner of the end zone. We're not saying that – I mean, there's college quarterbacks out there that make that throw consistently. Andrew Bunch would tell you that to win a big game, he should make that throw. The degree of difficulty is pretty high, but – I think that if they could do it over again, you got to at least put those 2 balls in a situation where your receiver at least has a chance to go get it. But you're right. I mean, he made a great throw to Spielman on 3rd down that got dropped. Made a really good throw on a 3rd and long to Stanley Morgan for 25 yards to get down around the 20-yard line. And then, they come up. So this is part of the learning experience, but they get that 25-yarder for a 1st down. There's 19 seconds left. They run up to the line. They're ready to go. They've actually got a run play called on 1st down. They've got good numbers. It looked like they were in position to at least have it blocked up to spring Greg Bell, if not for a touchdown, for another, first down type run, stop the clock again. And they're going literally as fast as they can, and they still manage to get a false start on the left tackle, Brendan Hymas, a sophomore. So just little stuff like that, You can say whatever you want about Martinez getting hurt or whatever, but there are a lot of little things in that game. And if Nebraska corrects really any number of them, maybe even just one or two, they've got a great chance to win that game.
Talking Nebraska football, Troy is the next opponent. Of course, they missed week number 1 against Akron, came back against a Colorado team that is now 2-0 after defeating Colorado State in their opener. So there's the distinction right there. You not only have a team that misses a first game in preparation for game 2, and it only makes sense that the old cliche is relevant here, that you improve the most from your first to second game. It makes sense, especially in college football where you've got no preseason. On top of that, we've got a new coach, got a new coaching staff. So you don't want to discount Colorado's effort. They won the game fair and square, but at the same time, you got to think that Nebraska could have put out a better effort had that game under its belt against Akron.
Yeah, I think there's you don't hear a lot of that from Scott Frost and this coaching staff. They pride themselves on not making excuses, and by and large, they haven't for the most part. But you do get that sense that it was a compounding problem, right? Like now, not only do they have to find another home game to play later in the year because that first game against Akron got canceled, but then if lightning storms don't roll through Lincoln, maybe they get some of those mistakes out of the way week 1, beat Akron, then find a way to beat Colorado. And now not only do you still have a bye week probably in late October, but you're 2-0 instead of 0-1. There's a lot of ifs and buts, but you can see why there's some bitterness. But it happens. The weather happens, and stuff happens, and they just sort of have to find their way forward from here.
As it was explained to me, Parker, the Akron players wanted to stick around for Sunday football, but not necessarily the administration.
Yeah, well, it was really complicated. I mean, you're talking about, it would have even been different. I think Akron was in the same spot last year, but it was a 2:30 kickoff. This one, didn't kick until 7:15, and then literally it was the opening kickoff, and then they went into a lightning delay. So you're trying to pull together logistics for a game at 10:30 a.m. Sunday, and they didn't even really start talking about it until 9 p.m. Saturday night or 8:30 p.m. Saturday night. So you can understand why it was difficult. What we understand is that Nebraska had it set to where they had 60 dorm rooms on campus that the Akron players were going to be able to use, but they were across a couple different buildings. They were going to have breakfast at a hotel in town down the road. And at Akron, the administration was just uncomfortable with the idea of having their players in multiple places, where you didn't know exactly where everyone was for the night, and then getting up early and having to play, that soon. And you can understand that. I mean, it's not in the best interest of players to get to bed at midnight and then have a, 5:30 a.m. wake up call. The players wanted to play, and the administration said this isn't in the best interest of our kids. And then I think Akron was skeptical too. I mean, Nebraska went into Saturday night thinking they were going to have a 3-hour window to play the game on Saturday night. That did not happen. There was no window whatsoever. And then they were saying that there was a 5-hour window on Sunday from 10:30 to 3:30. And I think Akron was a little bit skeptical at that point too, that, you're going to go to all this trouble to stay Saturday night. And then what if it just rained? What if it storms all day Sunday too? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I slanted that question because that's coming from somebody that wanted to watch extra football on Sunday. So I just wanted another game to watch that would have filled a gap. And, 10:30 in the morning, Sunday morning, that would have been great. College football, that would have been fabulous. Yeah, that would have been
awesome.
Not for you necessarily covering the game, but for me sitting on my couch, that would have been great.
We were joking that it would have been awesome if they would have just started at like midnight, or, it would have been like a Twilight Zone deal to be sitting there like covering ball at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah. Well, they do that in baseball every so often. Right. You'll see these late Major League Baseball games where they finish up after a rain delay and it's like 3:15 in the morning. So yeah, first game. So there's that checklist. So, we talked during the offseason, Parker, so many intriguing storylines to this particular team, but to any team, there's so much churn in college football in terms of personnel as we get accustomed to seeing certain players, and then they're not there. So then we have to get acquainted with the new guys. So if you want to run down the checklist of maybe some guys that stood out to you that we didn't know a whole lot about before this first game.
Yeah, well, the big one is Adrian Martinez. I mean, I think college football fans will be familiar with him before too long, especially considering the injury's not serious and he should be back here sometime in the next couple weeks. He's a really dynamic kid. He's only 18. He's the first true freshman in Nebraska history to start a season opener. He had 304 total yards of offense, 190 or so passing, and 100 plus rushing. And 3 touchdowns. Really, he can really run, and he's got pretty good touch and some upside throwing the ball too. So he's one to watch in the future. They have so much skill talent back that it is similar to last year actually in the receiving corps. Stanley Morgan and J.D. Spielman. Running back, they've got 3 that they like. Divine Ezigbo has been around for a long time. Nebraska fans know him. But a couple newcomers, Greg Bell's a junior college transfer, and Maurice Washington's a true freshman who is highly thought of. Didn't get here until right when fall camp started. And then on defense, it's a lot of similar characters. All of their defensive linemen are returners, and all of their linebackers are returners. It just looked completely different. Last year, they had 48 tackles for loss and 14 sacks total for the season. And against Colorado, they had 14 and 7. So a quarter of their tackle for loss production and half their sack production in one afternoon against Colorado compared to that anemic defense in 2017.
That's really crazy thinking about that. And of course, the 12th game as well is important for a team that we would expect might be close to that postseason borderline. You wouldn't want to finish 5-6 like Georgia Tech did last year and miss a game, and you're sitting home during bowl season and miss all those reps, and just the honor of going to postseason play and getting in that extra game for the fans.
Yeah, especially with a young team and a new system with Scott Frost and the coaching staff. I mean, a month for them, a month for any team in college football is important in terms of getting to go to a bowl and getting to work with your young guys. And they have 53 new players in the program since Frost was hired. So another month of work would do them a whole lot of good. And so I will be floored if they don't find a 12th game somewhere. What exactly it'll be, it's hard to say at this point. There's been a couple games with Hurricane Florence, moving toward the East Coast that sort of line up. Tennessee State's an FCS team. They were canceled against Hampton, I think. No reschedule, and they share a bye week with Nebraska. And then Marshall actually today with that game against South Carolina canceled. Nebraska and Marshall share bye weeks too. So there's a couple options that the money's got to work. You got to get, there's other teams looking for games too at this point with how many have been canceled so far this year, but they'll find one. And I would bet that they find it to play on their open date, October 27th, rather than waiting to see if they play Akron on December 1st.
Gotcha. So they couldn't make a contingency. Obviously, it wouldn't be fair to the other team to say, hey, if we're in the Big Ten championship game, obviously you're on your own, but otherwise we'd like to play on December 1st.
Yeah, Bill Moose, the athletic director here, said that they left it as sort of a standing verbal agreement that they would try to make it work for December 1st. But, both Akron and Nebraska could be right on that bowl eligibility line. But Akron played in the MAC title game last year, and the Big Ten West is going to be pretty bizarre, it looks like, this year. And so you might not know until maybe the last week of the regular season if either of those teams are or aren't going to be in a conference title game. And I would be surprised if Nebraska leaves that to chance until late in November. I think if they find a sure bet for October 27th, they'll take it.
MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, bringing on the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry, as we always do, for the best discussion, debate, and analysis. So please like, comment, and subscribe. We got a newsletter out there. Ask anybody who has subscribed to the newsletter. It's pretty first rate. We're getting good feedback. So we've got about 60 people on board at this point. So just do that by sending your email address to MarkRogersTV@gmail.com. One other thing, Parker, would be between what the coaches had to say after the game, Scott Frost, obviously, in particular, and just you guys kicking it around the media, what needs to get cleaned up here for the Troy game?
Yeah, well, they committed 11 penalties for 95 yards on Saturday. And 3 of them were enormous. They had a unnecessary roughness penalty for a hit on a defenseless receiver that turned what would have been 4th and 24 into a first down for Colorado. They scored the game-winning touchdown the next play. They had a false start penalty then on the drive that Bunch led down the field after that, that could have, given that looked like it could have been a big play. And then they had a holding penalty on the play Martinez got hurt on. So that's 3 in the last 3.5 minutes that really cost them. They didn't play real good in special teams. So you always figure that will come along, but they'd like to be better in that sooner rather than later. And then for as disruptive as the defense was, like we talked about the tackles for loss and sacks, they didn't force any turnovers. They turned it over on their first 2 possessions. Martinez threw an interception in the 4th quarter, and they didn't get their hands on the ball. So they were -3 in the turnover department. So any of those things come along, you think they have probably a decent shot against Troy. And if they make big strides in each of those departments as the season goes on, they've at least got a chance to make a little noise in the Big Ten West.
Michigan, Purdue, Wisconsin, Northwestern, the 4 after that. So it gets mighty tough after Troy comes to town. Parker Gabriel talking Nebraska football. You can join him on Husker Extra. Parker, you've been on a number of times. I got to reiterate it that we got a number of Nebraska fans that have personally asked for you. So we appreciate anytime you can make time for us. And if obviously once we hit this gauntlet in the Big Ten, as much as we can get you on, that would be great.
Let's do it.
All right, Parker. You have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
We'll let Parker go. I'll let everybody else know that we've got Florida State Talk coming up in just a few minutes. I would love to continue this live stream, but for those people that watch afterwards that don't want to dig 40 minutes into a live stream to find the content that they're looking for, we'll shut this down, send you the next link to talk Florida State football with James Coleman from Gridiron Nap. So we'll be right back in just a minute with Florida State Talk right here at Mark Rogers TV.